How can you take a joke so seriously? Are you missing a brain or something? Typical of subcontractors. Don't call me out for such nonsense. The rep from the contracting company sneered at me while looking me straight in the eye. This guy is the son of the president of a major construction company known around here. Other businesses in the area already found him difficult to deal with, but I never imagined he was this awful. Do you have any idea how seriously subcontractors take your words? We're constantly doing everything we can to meet your demands. I couldn't hold back and fired back at him. It's your job as a subcontractor to deliver since we're the ones giving you work. His reply was cold and showed not a shred of respect or care for us. Even his father, the chairman, who was listening beside him, said, "They're just broke folks making a fuss to get money. Don't bother us with their silly ramblings." I began laying out the evidence of the cruel actions taken against my granddaughter one by one. The president's son, out of spite for being rejected, put her life in danger. And behind this evidence, I uncovered an unexpected individual deeply involved. My name is James Anderson, 71 years old. I run an interior remodeling company. I got into the field of interior design in my youth and have handled countless new construction and renovation projects. The term interior remodeling may sound simple, but the work itself is incredibly diverse. From finishing floors and ceilings to installing wallpaper, my company employs many skilled craftsmen. Some say anyone can do it if they're taught, but the difference in quality is crystal clear. No matter what, I've always trusted and relied on their meticulous craftsmanship. We work together, facing forward, with a bond of trust as strong as family. In terms of work, I've been fortunate, steadily increasing sales even as a small business. However, my personal life has been filled with struggles. My wife passed away 20 years ago due to illness. She had always supported me and the company from behind the scenes, balancing work and home. But she disliked hospitals and kept working while hiding her physical ailments. One morning, I heard a dull thud from the kitchen. When I rushed over, I found her collapsed on the floor. She was unconscious when I held her, and despite treatment at the hospital, she didn't survive. After she passed, I realized just how much I had relied on her. I couldn't even fry an egg by myself. I struggled to wash my work clothes and couldn't properly iron a suit. Seeing this, my only daughter Mary returned home with her daughter Jennifer. At the time, Jennifer was just 3 years old. Mary, raising Jennifer as a single mother, had her own share of struggles. Jennifer's father had been out of contact since the day she was born. Of course, there was never any child support or living expenses sent. Mary had a good relationship with my wife, who often helped out by babysitting or bringing over dinner. However, a deep rift formed between Mary and me when I strongly opposed her marriage. Being a workaholic, I didn't know how to connect with my daughter and only got updates about her from my wife. So when Mary offered to live together, I was genuinely overjoyed. Naturally, my granddaughter Jennifer was incredibly dear to me, a treasure I could never tire of cherishing. I cleaned up Mary's old childhood bedroom and created enough space for them to live comfortably. I also bought new furniture, bedding, and dishes for the two of them. My wife and I had promised not to buy new dishes or furniture since we felt we didn't have many years left, focusing instead on downsizing. However, all the silverware in the house was adult-sized, too large for little Jennifer. I went to a department store, called a clerk, and carefully picked out some smaller items. It was my first time learning about the characters children love: bright pinks, reds, and characters with big, round eyes, things I had never noticed before. It must have been quite the sight of big, elderly man picking out character-themed spoons because I could hear people whispering from afar. But I didn't care. I just wanted Mary and Jennifer to be happy, so I kept going from store to store. I still remember how surprised Mary and Jennifer were by my efforts to welcome them when they moved in. Wow, Mom, it's Mogaron, Grandpa. Thank you so much. Jennifer's face lit up as she hugged the plates and pillows featuring her favorite character. Jennifer, that's great. Looks like Grandpa loves Mogaron too. The two of them happily admired the items I had carefully picked out with the store clerk's help. Dad, thank you. I always thought you were ashamed of me, thinking I was a disgrace of a daughter bringing a fatherless child home. But now, knowing you're happy to welcome us, it means so much. For the first time, I felt like I truly connected with Mary. I've always wanted Mary to be happy. That's why I opposed her marriage, and why I couldn't fully celebrate when I first heard she was having a child. But after we started living together as a family of three, I saw Jennifer's incredible kindness firsthand. At mealtimes, Jennifer would set the table herself with plates and utensils. And when Mary fell asleep from exhaustion, Jennifer would drag a blanket bigger than herself to cover her. Her tenderness and effort to help her mother, even as a little child, deeply moved me. I couldn't offer Jennifer kind words or play with her like my late wife used to. But in my own way, I showed her strict yet loving care to help her grow. Before I knew it, a year had passed, and our life as a family of three had settled into a routine. Around that time, my company faced a turning point. We started taking on projects not just nearby, but also in other states, requiring frequent business trips. As a result, I was home for less than half the month. Unfortunately, during this period, Mary, who had always been frail, fell seriously ill due to long-standing health issues. I wished I could be by her side to take care of her, but it was impossible for me to stay home full-time. After much deliberation, I decided to hire a caregiver to look after Mary. Despite the doctor's treatments and the dedicated care provided by the helper, Mary followed in my wife's footsteps and passed away far too soon. The sadness and regret were overwhelming. I couldn't stop crying. Losing my wife was heartbreaking, but Mary was still so young. And to leave this world, leaving Jennifer behind, it was unbearable. If only I had taken her to the doctor earlier. If only I had approved of her marriage, maybe she would have had more help raising Jennifer. Day after day, I cried myself to exhaustion. But no matter what, the morning always comes. I prepare breakfast for Jennifer and pack her lunch for daycare. I make sure she has her water bottle, handkerchief, and tissues, then take her to daycare. After that, I get myself ready and head to work. Living like this for about a month, I found myself at my wit's end. If this continued, both Jennifer and I would burn out. Dishes piled up in the sink, and laundry sat unfolded. "Mommy, I want Mommy." Jennifer's cries echoed through the houses, and I felt utterly helpless. I had been muddling through, but it was impossible from the start for a busy man like me to live alone with a preschooler. On top of that, Jennifer, like her mother, was frail and often caught colds, leaving her bedridden frequently. Each time, I had to miss work, and I began to seriously consider closing my company. It was then that Lisa, who had cared for Mary as her helper, approached me. "If you're okay with it, may I help by babysitting Jennifer? Mary often asked me to look after her." Thankfully, it seems Jennifer has grown comfortable with me. Lisa was gentle and reserved, yet she was strict with herself when it came to work. She handled everything without a hint of complaint, earning my complete trust. Without hesitation, I asked her for help. By the time Jennifer reached the upper grades of elementary school, she had finally grown emotionally stable. She had become a kind and honest girl with many friends. Though she used to catch colds almost every month as a child, she became healthier as she grew older. Watching her thrive, Lisa and I often smiled proudly at her. But one day, Lisa stopped coming to our houses and completely cut off contact. Despite this, Jennifer went on to middle and high school without causing any trouble, staying dedicated to her studies. One day during her senior year of high school, Jennifer came home with a form about her future plans. "Grandpa, they asked us about our career paths at school." She hesitantly handed me the paper titled Career Path Survey. The form was blank, with sections for first and second choices completely empty. Knowing Jennifer, she probably thought it would be selfish to write down her own hopes. "Well, it's blank. Grandpa will support whatever Jennifer wants to do or wherever she wants to go," I said gently, choosing my words carefully to encourage her. Jennifer, looking embarrassed, replied, "But with money and everything, I feel like deciding on my own might cause trouble." I never imagined Jennifer, still a high school student, would say something like that. Ever since she was young, Jennifer often said things like, "It's my fault." She saw her mom apologizing on the phone to her coworkers because Jennifer, with her frail health, caught a cold again. After her mom passed away, she saw me apologizing. Witnessing this up close, Jennifer started believing that everything was somehow her fault. I always told her not to worry about such things, but it seems that mindset had taken root in her. Now, I needed to make it clear to Jennifer, who was more concerned about me than her own dreams. "Jennifer, this is your life. You don't need to worry about me. Whatever path you choose, Grandpa will support you. You've probably already thought of a great plan, haven't you? Why don't you tell me?" Jennifer sat quietly for a moment, then looked me in the eye, having made up her mind. "Grandpa, I want to take over your company. I want to study business administration in college to prepare for it." Her determined gaze surprised me, but her words deeply moved me. She explained that she hoped to attend a public university nearby so she could commute from home. "Jennifer, with your grades, you could aim for a larger university in a bigger city. Are you sure about staying close to home?" Hoping to encourage her to dream even bigger, I suggested she consider moving to the city. But she shook her head and said, "No, my dream is to grow Grandpa's company and make you the honorary chairman of a top-tier business. If I stay nearby, I can learn more about the company, right?" I was deeply touched by Jennifer's dream and couldn't hold back my tears. I often wondered if I was having a positive influence on Jennifer's future. Those days of self-reflection now feel worthwhile. Watching Jennifer move forward with determination, I felt deeply resolved to support her. Jennifer, always an excellent student, was accepted into her dream university and began studying business. She seemed genuinely engaged in her chosen field, thriving every day. Even while attending university, she never neglected her responsibilities at home, showing both determination and hard work. As promised, After graduation, Jennifer applied to my company through the standard hiring process without mentioning she was my granddaughter. She was hired and assigned to the sales department. With her strong work ethic and cheerful personality, Jennifer quickly earned a stellar reputation among her colleagues and even the toughest craftsmen. I also heard stories from our clients. When Jennifer was asked tricky questions about the company's history as a rite of passage for new employees, she effortlessly impressed them with her knowledge. While it was no surprise, being my granddaughter, hearing such praise always made me smile. Jennifer, on the other hand, blended in humbly, never leveraging my name, and earned admiration for her dedication and integrity. Her sincerity and commitment deeply moved everyone, from her coworkers to our business partners. She has become an indispensable part of the company. During this time, a significant negotiation was arranged with Underflat Construction, the largest construction firm in the area. For companies like mine specializing in interior work, partnerships with major construction firms are essential. Securing a contract with Underflat Construction, the biggest player locally, would guarantee steady work for our business. Our company had managed to reach negotiation stages with Underflat Construction a few times before, but we were never taken seriously enough to secure a contract. This time, Jennifer was chosen as the new representative for the negotiations. The other party's representative was Robert Johnson, the son of Underflat Construction's chairman. It was well known in the industry, and I was aware that Robert was quite a difficult character to deal with. I approved Jennifer's involvement, thinking it would be a good opportunity for her to broaden her skills despite her limited sales experience. I also believed that someone as bright and quick-witted as Jennifer might manage to win Robert over. Jennifer, you know the world is full of all kinds of people, right? There are folks like Robert who might throw out sarcastic remarks or talk down to you. But I believe the best way to handle such people is to respond sincerely. Just bring your genuine effort and honesty to the table. One evening during dinner, I shared this advice with Jennifer, who was enthusiastically preparing for her new role. Yeah, I've heard plenty of stories from my seniors, and I think I've got a good idea of what Robert is like. Even the manager said that if I could secure this contract, it would be a huge benefit for the company. So watch me, I'll do my best. For a moment, I was struck by how much more confident she seemed compared to the Jennifer I once knew, who often lacked self-assurance. Even if the negotiations with Underflat didn't succeed, I felt it would still be a valuable experience for her, so I quietly continued eating that night. On the day of her first negotiation and initial meeting as a representative, Jennifer dressed sharply in a suit and headed out with confidence. Jennifer, are you going alone for this visit? Grandpa, you worry too much. I'm a fully capable saleswoman now. See you later. Jennifer dashed out the door with a smile. Glancing at the clock, I realized it was already time for me to leave for work as well, and I hurried to get ready. That evening, Jennifer returned from her meeting with Underflat Construction, but unlike her usual self, she looked upset. How was Robert from Underflat? I asked her. Yeah, well, sorry, I'm just really tired today, she replied and retreated to her room. I figured she was simply exhausted from dealing with someone like Robert for the first time, so I didn't press further. About a month after the initial meeting with Underflat Construction, Jennifer had another scheduled visit with Robert. However, later that day, chaos erupted in the office because Jennifer hadn't returned. The sales manager, one of the few who knew about my relationship with Jennifer, kindly informed me of the situation, prompting me to rush to the sales department. "Did you contact Underflat?" I asked. "Yes, we called them right away, but they said she hadn't shown up at the agreed time and that they were also concerned. Jennifer had been reviewing materials until just before leaving and should have had plenty of time to get there." "Got it. She's not the type to run away from her responsibilities. Something unexpected must have happened. If we don't hear from her soon, call the police." "Understood. I'll contact them immediately," the manager said, picking up the phone. Just as the manager lifted the receiver, the phone began to ring. The manager quickly answered, and the caller was from a hospital. The manager's face turned pale as he listened. Unable to bear it any longer, I grabbed the receiver to hear for myself. Jennifer had collapsed and been rushed to the hospital. I was so shocked that I nearly dropped the phone. This morning, Jennifer had left the house full of energy, saying, "I'm off," and now she was in emergency care. Disbelief consumed me, but all I could think about was checking on Jennifer. I jumped into a taxi. I gave the driver the hospital's name and begged him to get me there as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, a heavy snowstorm had hit, and the roads were congested. Still, the driver kindly chose shortcuts and back roads, getting me there in about the usual time. When I rushed into the hospital room, I saw Jennifer lying on a stark white bed, her face pale and her eyes closed in sleep. I turned to the nearby nurse and asked, "How is Jennifer? Is she going to be okay?" She was in a critical state due to hypothermia earlier, but her condition has stabilized. "She's sleeping now and should wake up soon," the nurse replied. Hearing this, I felt my first moment of relief. I sat by Jennifer's side, holding her hand as she slept. Her hand's warmth was the only reassurance that she was alive. Her face was so lifeless it seemed otherwise. I couldn't help but see echoes of my wife and Mary, whom I had also watched pass away, and tears began to flow uncontrollably. "Jennifer, please open your eyes. Don't leave me alone. Please, don't take another precious person from me." As I pleaded silently, about 30 minutes passed, and then Jennifer opened her eyes. "Jennifer, are you okay?" "Grandpa, wait. I was at Underflat, but where am I now?" "You're in the hospital. You were found collapsed in the snow and brought here by ambulance." Hearing this, Jennifer's face relaxed in relief, and tears rolled down her cheeks. "Grandpa, I'm sorry I just couldn't hold it in anymore." Jennifer kept apologizing over and over again. I calmed her down and gently asked her to tell me what had happened. "What happened today? The manager said you left on time with all your materials ready." "Well, for about a month now, my presentations have been repeatedly rejected. Today, I was determined to secure the contract, so I headed to Underflat. I'd prepared excellent materials, got advice from my seniors, and practiced my presentation over and over." At this point, Jennifer's voice faltered, and tears welled up in her eyes. Robert barely glanced at the materials I handed him and threw them aside. Then he said, "If you really want the contract, show some grit." "Grit?" He ignored your materials and started talking about grit. Jennifer nodded. "Yes." Then he took me to the front entrance of Underflat Construction and said, "We'll have a test of endurance. Stand here and don't move." I wanted so badly to secure the contract. So I did as he said and kept standing there at the entrance. I remember up to about 6 hours. but after that, I don't recall anything. With that, Jennifer buried her face in the blanket and began sobbing uncontrollably. Overwhelmed by a mix of anger and sorrow, all I could do was gently rub her back. This experience revealed to me just how despicable Robert truly was, a person of the lowest character. What he did went far beyond the snide remarks and petty complaints our staff had endured in the past. It was outright vile. But one question haunted me. Why Jennifer? Why did he target Jennifer for such heinous behavior that bordered on criminal? No matter how hard I thought, I couldn't find an answer. As I wrestled with these thoughts, Jennifer began speaking again. Grandpa, I remember how happy you looked when you told me I'd been chosen to handle the underflat account. I thought if I could secure the contract on my own, you'd be even prouder of me. But now, this happened. I'm so sorry. So Jennifer, thinking of me, endured such humiliation and stood shivering in the snow. The thought of sincere, kind-hearted Jennifer going through this pierced me with regret. How could I have been so blind? I should have seen this coming. I should have told the sales manager to send someone else. It was too soon for Jennifer to handle this alone. No, Jennifer, this isn't your fault. The blame lies entirely with that vile person who could do such a thing without shame. You worked so hard. Stop apologizing, okay? As I spoke, tears began flowing from my own eyes as well. There was one thing I couldn't understand, so I asked Jennifer directly. Jennifer, if you were thinking about me or the company, it would have been better if you had told us beforehand. Maybe we could have prevented this from happening. Why didn't you talk to us? Actually, ever since my first day as the account manager, Robert kept insisting that I go out with him. I kept turning him down politely, trying not to hurt his pride, but it didn't work. Jennifer lowered her gaze, her voice trembling as if recalling the incident. Since it was a personal matter, I felt like it wasn't right to tell you or the manager. I endured it for a while. But yesterday, I finally told him clearly, I want to work with your company. But I'm not interested in a personal relationship with you. That's when his attitude completely changed today. So, Robert left her standing in the snow for hours as retaliation for rejecting him. I felt a surge of disgust at the sheer pettiness of this man. I would never forgive him for endangering Jennifer's life over his pathetic pride. I told Jennifer, who said she felt tired, to lie down and rest, then left the hospital room. In the lounge, I made a call to Underflat Construction. I told the person who answered that I needed to speak about Robert Johnson. The call was connected to the chairman himself. Yes, this is Johnson, the chairman said. The moment I heard his voice, I couldn't contain my anger. Hey, what's wrong with your idiot son? He left my granddaughter standing in the snow for 6 hours. I'm going to make sure your son loses his job, I yelled. What? Who do you think you are? Just a subcontractor? Go ahead and try it. If you do, it'll be your head on the chopping block. Do whatever you want. With a loud laugh, the chairman hung up the phone. I stared at the receiver, frustrated that I still had so much more to say. At that moment, I noticed a woman rushing breathlessly from the nurse's station, heading straight for Jennifer's hospital room. She seemed panicked, running directly to Jennifer's room without hesitation. Just before she entered, I caught a glimpse of her profile, and it was familiar. Lisa. I murmured, then quickly followed her. Trailing behind her was a man in a security uniform. Why were the two of them heading to Jennifer's room? Confused, I followed them into the room. Several days passed since Jennifer had been brought to the hospital by ambulance. Now, it seemed likely that she would be discharged soon. The tests conducted to rule out any complications had all come back normal. At the office, my colleagues had a lively debate every evening about who would bring Jennifer her favorite fruit mochi. It seemed like someone visited her every day. When I asked Jennifer about it, she laughed and said, "My fridge is overflowing with sweets and drinks, and the nurses even scolded me for it," while playfully sticking out her tongue. It was reassuring to see that Jennifer seemed to be recovering emotionally as well. I decided to call Underflat Construction again and requested a meeting with the chairman and Robert. "We've decided to file a lawsuit. We have enough evidence to win in court. If you'd like to discuss this matter, I request that you visit our office with your son, of course." The chairman responded, "Fine, fine. I know this is just subcontractor nonsense, but I'll humor you and show up." He arrived with Robert in tow. "Chairman, are you sure this will work out? Even with evidence, dealing with those people seems like a challenge," a colleague asked me. "Don't worry. I know you've all dealt with their antics for a long time. Leave it to me," I reassured them. I walked to the conference room where the two were waiting. "Well, we came all this way, and you don't even serve us tea," Robert sneered. "Guess they can't afford it. What's a tiny company like yours trying to prove?" he added. The moment I stepped into the room, the two of them kept mocking our company. Their complete lack of remorse fueled my anger. But I forced myself to stay composed. I reminded myself of everything Jennifer had endured and kept my focus. As I mentioned on the phone, we are filing a lawsuit against Mr. Robert Johnson. Additionally, once the victim is discharged from the hospital, we plan to file a police report regarding this case. "Oh, come on. Aren't you blowing this out of proportion? It's annoying that your little sales rep took a joke so seriously. It's causing problems for us now. Honestly, isn't it your female employee's fault for disrespecting Robert, even though he was being kind to her? And Robert only joked around a little to get back at her. Aren't you embarrassed to take this to court?" Robert's selfish excuses and the chairman's willingness to accept them made me feel sick. Still, I couldn't back down now. "Robert, you persistently harassed the female employee, didn't you? You called and emailed her at all hours of the day, and when she didn't reply, you threatened that it would affect the contract." I stared directly into Robert's eyes as I spoke, but he avoided my gaze. "Furthermore, over the course of a month, you summoned her to your office for minor corrections that didn't require in-person visits, and repeatedly pressured her to have dinner with you afterward. She felt so distressed that she couldn't even talk to her supervisor and had to bear it all on her own." I methodically laid out the facts I had heard from Jennifer. "The day before the incident, you told her that if she agreed to date you, you'd finalize the contract. But she refused, clearly stating she wasn't interested in a personal relationship and asked you to evaluate the materials she'd worked hard to create. Am I wrong?" Even as I said the words, recounting Robert's repulsive behavior made me feel nauseous. Robert remained silent, staring to the side, while the chairman urged him with a glance to respond. When the silence continued, I pressed on. "Out of spite for being rejected, you ordered her to stand outside in the snow the next day." The thought of what Jennifer must have been feeling at that moment tore at my heart. I felt ashamed of myself for not realizing what she had been going through. I should have noticed the slight changes in Jennifer's behavior myself. Then Robert said something unbelievable. I didn't have any ulterior motives. She was the one who flirted with me, so I played along. But then she got cocky and told me to stop. How disrespectful. So, as a joke, I told her it was an endurance test. Your employee took it seriously. That's her fault. What a vile man. Now he was trying to blame Jennifer to avoid responsibility. Do you have any idea how hard subcontractors work to meet the demands of their clients? I asked. Huh, I wouldn't know. Why would I care about what poor subcontractors do? You're just making a fuss to extort money from us. We're not out here scraping for pennies like you people, Robert sneered. I finally saw Robert's true colors. And the chairman, his father, just sat there, silently listening without rebuking him. It was clear neither of them had any intention of reflecting on their actions. I quietly turned my laptop screen toward them. Without a word, I pressed play on a video. The footage showed the security room at Underflat Construction on the snowy day of the incident. On the screen, Robert was seen instructing the security guard, "Don't let the woman standing at the entrance inside. If you do, you're fired." The footage was from a security camera, but the quality was excellent, with both video and audio clearly captured. This shows Robert in the security room, shortly after forcing our employee to stand outside in the snow. The timestamp is 1:00, the same time the meeting was scheduled. Both men sat in silence, staring at the video. Robert looked visibly uncomfortable, but his arrogance was still apparent. In contrast, the chairman stared at his son in disbelief. The next footage is from 6 hours later at 7:00, I said. The video showed the timestamp of 7:00 clearly. It depicted the security guard frantically making a phone call and Robert returning to the security room. "We should call an ambulance immediately. Her life is in danger," the guard said anxiously. Robert, however, shouted back, "I told you to leave her alone. If you call an ambulance, you're fired, and if you don't listen, I can fabricate misconduct and have you terminated for cause." The security guard glanced worriedly at the surveillance camera monitor. While Robert smirked and muttered, "It worked out perfectly with this heavy snow. No one's around to see." At that point, I paused the video and turned to the two of them. "Well, do you believe Robert's actions are acceptable by societal standards? Or is this type of behavior considered normal at your company?" I looked at them, holding back my anger. There weren't supposed to be any surveillance cameras in the security room. How? Robert muttered, burying his head in his hands. The chairman, with a troubled expression, said, "I hadn't told you, but we recently installed state-of-the-art cameras in the security room because of concerns about leaked company information." "What have you done?" He lowered his head in despair. Following this, Robert left the security room and went back to work as if nothing had happened. When the workday ended, he went home without a second thought about her condition, I concluded. To ensure the security guard wouldn't face any punishment, I needed to clarify the situation. After being yelled at by Robert, the guard followed instructions and didn't call an ambulance. Instead, a passerby happened to notice and called for help. "Please don't penalize a guard who followed orders to the letter," I urged the chairman. The chairman replied, "Of course not. In fact, I'm grateful the passerby intervened and called for assistance." This account is true, but there's more to the story. The guard, unable to call an ambulance himself, contacted his sister instead. That sister, who just happened to pass by and find Jennifer, turned out to be none other than Lisa, the sitter who had once cared for Jennifer. The day Jennifer was rushed to the hospital, it was indeed Lisa I saw in the hospital room. The man who followed her in was her brother, the security guard at Underflat Construction. When Lisa realized the collapsed woman was Jennifer, she explained the situation to the paramedics and found out the hospital Jennifer was taken to. Worried, she later visited with her brother after his shift ended. Lisa had carried guilt for abandoning Jennifer years ago, feeling she had no right to face her. Yet, seeing Jennifer's pale face as she was loaded into the ambulance, Lisa couldn't resist confirming her safety. She had planned to leave after a quick visit, but froze in place when I walked in behind her. I asked Lisa and her brother for their cooperation, which allowed us to stand here today. Robert, there's no escaping this anymore. We'll be submitting all this evidence to the police. If you have anything to say, save it for court. Now, please leave. Wait, please, the chairman interjected. My son didn't mean any harm. You're going this far for just one employee, a trial for my own son. Don't you understand how painful this is for me as his father? At the very end, the chairman resorted to emotional pleas. Even if the victim were just an employee, I would do the same thing. But Anderson Jennifer is also my beloved granddaughter. I cannot forgive anyone who would do something so despicable to my precious granddaughter. Do you even understand how I feel? I couldn't hide my anger anymore. Hearing my passionate outburst, the chairman silently stood up and greeted deeply. Robert, on the other hand, seemed like he wanted to say something, but the chairman stopped him and headed for the door. Watching their defeated figures leave the conference room, I felt an overwhelming sense of regret. I had allowed people like them to have any involvement with Jennifer. Ideally, they should have apologized directly to Jennifer. The fact that they trampled on her hard work would never change, no matter what legal consequences they faced. Later, after Jennifer was discharged from the hospital, we went to the police station to file a formal report. We submitted concrete evidence, and the report was successfully accepted. Following the investigation, Robert was taken into police custody. When the trial began, his lack of remorse and 6-hour-long abusive behavior toward a subcontractor's employee drew public outrage. Combined with his prior actions, the criticism was swift and severe. Underflat Construction faced a major loss of trust, leading to plummeting stock prices. The chairman was forced to resign to take responsibility. With Robert receiving a criminal conviction and the company sinking into financial struggles, the former glory of Underflat Construction became a distant memory. I took Jennifer, now discharged from the hospital, to visit Lisa once again. Since our reunion in the hospital room, we hadn't seen her, and I hadn't had a chance to properly thank her. We had exchanged contact information, so I asked her for a convenient time to meet. She graciously invited us to her home. When we arrived, Lisa welcomed us into a cozy apartment. She led us to a small table and served warm tea. "Oh, Mogarun, that's nostalgic. I love this character," Jennifer exclaimed. Noticing the plastic plate holding some cookies, which resembled the Mogarun plate she had used as a child. "Jennifer, this is actually the Mogarun plate you gave me," Lisa said. "Oh, I thought so. I remember insisting that you take it because I adored you so much," Jennifer laughed. And the two of them excitedly reminisced about old times. I adjusted my seat and said, "Thank you so much for everything you've done. You cared for Jennifer when she was a sickly child, and now, as an adult, you saved her life. Lisa, you are an irreplaceable part of our lives. Expressing my heartfelt gratitude, Lisa replied, Not at all. I'm the one who ran away from Jennifer back then. I don't deserve such kind words from the two of you. Lisa looked at Jennifer and me with the same gentle gaze she had when caring for Jennifer as a child. It felt as though no time had passed, and the emotions of that time came flooding back. Suddenly, Jennifer teased us with a grin. Grandpa and Lisa, you two look great together. You're both single. Why not start dating now? She looked at us mischievously as she spoke. An awkward silence settled between Lisa and me. What? What's wrong with you two? Jennifer asked, glancing at us with concern. Oh, no, no. Grandpa got rejected by her 20 years ago, I said with a laugh. What, Lisa? Why would you turn down Grandpa? You'll never find someone this wonderful anywhere else. Even as his granddaughter, I highly recommend him. While I chuckled at Jennifer's enthusiastic endorsement, part of me was genuinely curious to hear how Lisa felt. Under the weight of both Jennifer's and my stares, Lisa looked flustered. But then her expression turned serious as she began to speak. All right, I'll be honest with you, the truth is. Lisa explained that we first met because of Jennifer's mother, Mary's illness. When Mary passed away, she thought our connection had ended. But then, she became involved again when Jennifer's health issues arose. Lisa admitted that she admired my devotion to my family, but she couldn't shake the feeling that our relationship was built on the misfortune of others. When I confessed my feelings to her back then, she couldn't overcome her guilt and didn't know how to respond, so she disappeared from my life. Listening to her explanation, I understood what she was trying to say. Her reasoning was consistent with her thoughtful and earnest personality. But when I glanced at Jennifer sitting beside me, her jaw was dropped, and she was frozen in shock. What, Lisa? Are you serious? You rejected Grandpa over something so trivial, Jennifer laughed. I widened my eyes and scolded her. Hey, that's rude. What do you mean? Trivial. But Lisa let out a soft chuckle and said, Yes, it was trivial, while wiping away the tears that spilled from her laughter. Jennifer looked at Lisa with a gentle gaze before announcing, You too. I risked my life to reunite you. So you'd better make this work. Now, this young lady will excuse herself and leave you two to enjoy your time. With that, she stood up, grabbed her things, and left in a hurry. After Jennifer's noisy exit, silence filled the room between Lisa and me. We both hesitated, unsure of what to say or how to begin. Finally, summoning my courage, I said, It's been 20 years. Maybe we can start by being friends again. My face felt like it was on fire. I must have been as red as a tomato. With pleasure, Lisa replied with her same gentle smile. Looking closely, her face was also flushed. Despite thinking how ridiculous this felt like being in middle school again, I couldn't help but savor the happiness of the moment.